Nice to see you, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff. And hi, Maria.
Hi, Colin. Welcome to Access Lunchtime. My name is Maria Barnes, and I'm the chapter president of the Lunchtime Group for accessusergroups.org. And today we're going to explore the brand new Edge web browser control. Right now, it's only available in the beta/insiders version. But if you go and become an insider and get that version, you can publicly get it at this point. I believe, and I've got some more details a little later here in the slides, but I believe that the version number is got 2023-04 in it, which means I believe that it should release to the, I think it's called Current Channel Preview or something like that, next month in April. So pretty soon. And that's, of course, if things go well, you know.
Maria,
yes.
It's in the Current Channel Preview already.
It is now.
Yeah, 2303. It was released in both channels simultaneously.
Oh, that's interesting. I wonder why it says 04 in the version I got. Well, we'll have to correct that then. Make sure you let me know, and then I will reload my PDF and the zip file after this. Here's the version number that I had. So then is that incorrect, Colin? Is that 2303?
I've got 2303 build 16227-20204. Should I put that in the chat anyway?
Which is earlier than that, but it still says 2303.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, put it in the chat, and then I'll do some research afterwards and see if I can get it correct here. According to Colin, it's already available in the current preview channel, and maybe then it will be available in the current channel in April instead of May. If you've been to the website that Microsoft publishes the different things that are coming up, the roadmap. Have you been to the roadmap lately? I think last time I looked, which was late last week, there were 2 entrees for this feature. There's only 1 feature release. I think they just have to get it straightened out. But I think April is the correct date for planned release for that. If you are able to use it now, I know Microsoft would like some feedback, so you could certainly report back feedback to me or use any of the other inline access feedback and report issues that way, and that goes direct to the team. And, you know, if you report it to me, I'll pass it along if you have issues. A couple of us have found a few. Overall, it works fairly good. Thank you, Jeff, for posting a link to the roadmap page with access filters, I assume, here. So one other kind of caveat here, I am in no way a web browser control expert. I have used it several times. Most of the times that I've used it are for fairly simple applications. I haven't done a lot with it, although I did do 1 or 2 kind of what I call screen scraping applications off of it, but that has been some time ago. What we're going to talk about here today is pretty basic, but hopefully you'll get a good understanding of what this new control looks like and what are the similarities and differences with the current web browser control. So the new control, if it's enabled here, looks like this here with it circled in red with kind of a little lightning bolt, and it's on the top line of the controls, and the old web browser is on then the bottom of the 3 lines if you use your little drop down to see the rest of the controls. And it still looks like the web, but it doesn't have the flash or lightning bolt through it. And if you hover over them, the old one says web browser control, And the new one says Edge browser control. So that's the difference between the two of them as far as the form design interface. When should you use the new control? So we recommend that any new development, if you're inserting a browser control, that you should use the new Edge browser control. And also, I'm sure Microsoft would recommend that gradually we phase out any previous use of the old control. It's preferred that you do that sooner rather than later, because the old control, even though it's based on Internet Explorer underlings called the Trident engine, the scheduled retirement is not actually until 2029 of the underlying Trident engine. So you still have some time, but I believe there's no security updates being made to that. Some companies are insisting that you can no longer use it because of that. And so this new web browser control called the Edge browser control gives you a way around that limitation for those companies who have already outlawed using it. It's definitely better to use and more secure to use at this point. You're also going to find, and you'll see a little bit later when I show the example, I haven't totally figured out how to do this yet, but it should enable you to, for example, embed Power BI reports within an Access form, and also to browse to other websites that either don't run well in Internet Explorer, like, for example, Google Maps with some JavaScript APIs. You'll see an example later here today of another website that I load that's just no longer Internet Explorer compatible. When I load it with the old control, I get all these JavaScript errors and I have to hit yes, yes, yes about 3 or 4 times before it comes up, and it doesn't really display correctly. So this will help you get around those things because it's now using the new control, and it would be like those who get their website to be Edge compliant. Then there's also a limitation for some web addresses in the older web browser control. I personally don't use Google Maps to this extent, but I know Colin does. If you try to put in a web address that's longer than 2083 in the old control, it can't handle that. The new control can handle it. So there's some great reasons to switch to the new control. Obviously, you have to have a version of Access that is able to use it, which would be those newer versions. And you have to physically make the move, delete or comment out or hide or whatever the old control and bring the new one in order to use the new one, or just in new development, start with that. So I wanted to outline a couple of the main differences in the new control. There are a few events that are not included. The before navigate to and the progress change are not available. So if you used those in the past, you'll need to, modify what you do and not use those, do it in some other way. There's a few new methods. There's execute JavaScript. There's retrieve JavaScript value. There's a navigate, and there's a refresh. And there's a few properties that are not included. The object property is not included. And you may be saying, whoa, that's a biggie. So we are going to have some examples of how to use some of the new things in there to do what you used to do with the object property if you did use that. Also, on progress change is not included, and there's one new property named Trusted Domains, and I'm going to show you how to make use of that. At the end of the presentation, there's some links to, for example, the documentation on the new Edge browser control where some of these methods are outlined, and you could compare that to the web browser control documentation versus the new documentation. Jeff is here, so maybe he can comment, but right now at least, and understand that this is brand new. It's really still in the newer pre-current channel environments. The documentation to me seems good, but it seems still a little sparse. I don't see like examples in there of how to do various things like Microsoft's so good at including in most of their online help. Not yet, anyway. Hopefully we'll get that fairly soon. I want to talk a little bit about the Trusted Domains property. This is a brand new property, and it allows you to specify a table name, which the first column in the table name contains domains that the browser is allowed to re-navigate to. So my understanding is that this is a security feature. So, and hopefully I have this right. If the control source for the new Edge browser control is bound to a field, the browser is automatically allowed to navigate to the field values that are in that field. So if the control source is not bound to a field, the browser can navigate to any value that you use the navigate method with. And again, I'm going to demo that navigate method. But basically the navigate method, you pass it a URL, and you could, for example, have an unbound Edge browser control and then do something in your form, and maybe you have a text box and you put the URL in there, and then you could use the navigate method to make your Edge browser control navigate to the text box value that you just entered. So that is allowed. But if once you navigate to, or once you fill the Edge browser control with the website that you have in your control source, if it's bound, once you navigate to that website, if there is any redirects in that website, then the security that Microsoft has put in place with this control does not allow that re-navigation to an outside website. And if you want to allow that on purpose, then you need to use this trusted domain property and put the allowed websites that you want it to be able to redirect to in that first column in that table that you set trusted domains to. And again, I'm going to show you that, but it's different. It's more secure than what we had with the previous web browser control. And I know you know that there's been a big push towards making things in Access more secure this year. And this is one of those pieces. So at the moment, and I put a little caveat down here, you apparently cannot mix both local and web references. For example, if you had in your table a local file, maybe it was pictures of employees or whatever that you had on your local drive, you can't mix that and outside web references in the same table and allow redirects to both right now. I think they may be considering allowing that, but at the moment you can't mix them. Yeah, I have here that they may remove that restriction at a later date. Okay, so let's go through some examples. The first example I want to go through is a simple navigation example. Let's look at a bound control and an unbound control. So I have here a bound form. This is the new browser control. This happens to be my website. And then the record, it's bound to actually this table here of websites. And then as you go to the next record, it pulls up the next website on there. So that's one of the simplest things to do. You know, I've done this, for example, with a client who had a website with product pictures, and then they had some kind of a local application that used those products. And in the access form, we displayed pictures of the products direct from their website. You know, there's many, many different things you could do with this, but this is the simplest type of application that I could think of. And I did put on here a text box control. So the control source is this web page. The data source for the form is this websites table. So this is simply displaying what the website value in that table is. And then the Edge browser control is also bound to the same source as the text is, but then because it's a Edge browser control, it displays the actual site of the link as opposed to just the link itself. There we go. Now you can see the actual address here. And then when you do the switch to the next one. Let's look at the unbound control. Change design to nom tab. Yeah, that probably would work too. Let's open this one. Okay, and this one has a web browser control and it has the same URL here, but it doesn't have this form linked to the websites table. So this is an unbound form. So if I type in a website and then hit the go button, let's show you what that looks like here. The go button simply, if the web address doesn't equal the location URL of the current control, then it navigates to the value in that text box web address. Now, there are a couple things to make note of here. Notice that did nothing. If I type www. It doesn't work either. If I type HTTPS, so it doesn't care about the case. Look, notice that it actually fills out what it found. The thing that it didn't do, if I go to a regular Edge browser and I bring up a new Edge browser and I type in that same thing, if I type in not that, but if I type in this, what happens is that starts as an HTTP and then there's a redirect to an HTTPS. So the normal Edge browser does that. The Access one is being prevented from doing that. But if you go and you add in here in your trusted domains, which is in data, that table websites, and in this table I have the HTTPS version of that, then I can go in here and I can type in the www dot, and then it will go. I believe. I got this to work before. Yeah, let me try it from fresh. I think maybe the fact that it always already equals that. Ah, heck. That should have worked because I have this set here to be those websites. So you need to watch for those kind of things. And I don't know why, of course. This is because of the demo that it's not working. Yeah. So anyway,
HTTP would probably have worked.
let's try it. Well, look, it's going right now into this. I think this is a bug that it opens up that when it redirects. It hasn't always done that. Sometimes now it's back to HTTPS. So maybe a few bugs here, but in any way, you get the idea at least of what it's supposed to do, I hope. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about another example about the a Power BI report and view what it looks like on the old web browser control and the new one. And again, I didn't get this to fully work when I tried it out, but I'm hoping to find out more information about why not. And if so, I will pass it along to you. Maybe by the time Crystal gets this up on the YouTube website, we can put an explanation of that in there, or I can change my sample here and re-upload the samples. So the old web browser control I have that loaded to load a Power BI report. And you probably won't have the rights, or you definitely won't have the rights, I don't think, to this Power BI report if you try this sample, but hopefully by looking at the actual design view, you can look at what it looks like and you can put in your own Power BI report. It doesn't run well on the old web browser control. It gets script errors because Power BI no longer supports Internet Explorer. So you have to do a couple script errors. And after you get through those, you get basically nothing. When you go to the new one, you don't get any of those script errors. You start going right into the Power BI sign-on. Now, this is the part that doesn't work. There's I believe some redirects in here to log in to this. Spell it right. And when I do this, it opens up a window and it just sits there and does nothing. And then eventually it comes back here and I get some kind of error about I couldn't get there from here. I have tried going in and see if I can let it stop here for a minute so you can see what it says. It's like it times out. You don't have access to view this page. And it does tell you what it's trying to view in this, which is kind of nice. And I can't see this very well because I should make this smaller for this particular thing, but Power BI was unable to really read the application metadata. Please check the Power BI service status in the below. And it's not letting me go down here to see it, but there is a message with, I believe, a link to this in there. Here's what the Power BI website looks like, and I'll just show you what it actually looks like when you do that in Edge. If I go in there refresh. Oops, I got to take off some quotes. It already knows that I'm signed in, I believe, and it displays the report. So this report does work. And in Edge itself, it's got some smarts in there with Power BI to look to see if I'm signed in. If I take this and I take my profile and I sign out, then I get the sign in process with this redirect, and it happens, like you would normally see it. George, you don't have to log into your Power BI. Can you share that? Yes. Do you have it working, George, in a new Edge browser control?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great. Let me say one more thing here. And then if you'd like to share your screen and show that, you can do that. So I did try to put a trusted domains. I tried the websites table, and in that websites, I added the app.powerbi and I added login.microsoftonline.com. I was hoping that that would help. The app.powerbi is the original link, and it's, a sub of that, but I somehow still don't have something right with what it needs in the redirects, I think, to get it to work. So, okay, I'm going to stop sharing. And George, if you'd like to go ahead, and thank you for joining. I appreciate it.
I'm sorry I was late. I was at my dentist office.
That doesn't sound fun.
No. Well, it was okay. At least it's over with. So this is actually a Power BI report running in the Edge browser. And it's just website stats for my websites. I run a family site and Go Work Park Consulting. But it runs pretty much the same way. My theory, Maria, is that I'm signed into my Microsoft 365 account with the same account that uses this Power BI. And I think it's that credentialing that's causing you to have to log in. Are you signed into the same?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean that's really all I wanted to show you. Is it does
Right.
It does work without if I
So can you put that in design mode?
I can try. Now, are you seeing it in design mode?
Yep, I'm seeing it now.
So that's the URL.
Okay, and it's very similar, right? app.powerbi.com.
Yeah.
So yours is a view as opposed to mine's a groups me reports.
Yeah, so this was running into the old web browser up until the time they broke it.
Okay.
And as soon as I put the new web browser, the Edge browser in here, it came back to life.
Okay. I wonder if it's the link that I'm using. Like maybe I need to use a different link.
That might be it too. Yeah.
So I'll check on that and see if I can go that route. Thank you. I appreciate it. And you don't have anything in the properties as far as a renavigation table?
Nope, I never even bothered to do that.
Okay. You just have the data source,
The
control source set. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yep. Well, that does confirm it works.
Yes. Great. What happens, by the way, when you try it with the old web browser control?
I get that same JavaScript error you were
Same JavaScript errors and nothing happens. Okay, great. Good to confirm. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to pick back up here and reshare. Okay, so that didn't work like I wanted to, but I'll see if I can fix that and then re-upload this. I did post another link to what I've uploaded in a zip file that has a PDF of today's presentation and a sample database for you to play with. And like I said, this particular Power BI report, I don't think you'll have a security to view yourself, but you can hopefully see by looking at it what the format is to use. If you could hold off on downloading that, so maybe I can get a fixed version up, that might be good. Anyway, okay, so then besides that, let's take a look at Google Maps. The one I have here is less than the max of the old browser control, which is 2083. But maybe Colin can tell you some of the different things that he's tried that have really long ones. This one still is fairly long. I think I did count it and put it up, but basically it's a link to something that I did in Google Maps and copied over, and it shows you here. You open it, that it's 301 characters long, the website address is, but here it opens up. This is from a location that's kind of near me, map and directions on how to get to the Target Center, which is where the twins play. So, you know, if you had some kind of application where maybe it was a shipping application and you needed directions from here to there, or some kind of a charting type, you know, where a location, and you were able to feed Google Maps the satellite coordinates to pull up a particular location, you know, as part of your application, then you could use this new Edge browser control and be more assured that you could not only have the updated security with this control, but get to all of those long links that you might need to do with Google Maps or some other type of website that requires long links. Now I want to talk about using the retrieve JavaScript method instead of the object property. And I don't know how many of you have done screen scraping type things or manipulation of the HTML that is returned from web browser objects. But if you did that in the past, you use something like the syntax on the first line. You would take the browser control, and I think object is not mandatory. You can either have that or not have that. And then document, and then inside that, the body and the inner HTML. That's one way to do it. You can also get to outer HTML and some other things. But for the new one, there is no object property. So you cannot use the same syntax. So you're going to have to do something a little bit different if you're using the HTML of the object right now in your old web browser and you're replacing it with the new Edge browser. The method that kind of replaces getting what is in the document is called this new retrieve JavaScript value. And you pass it some type of string that gets to the document in a JavaScript method. So I did put as one of the links in the final slide here, a link to W3 Schools and the JavaScript tutorial. If you are already doing this, then you probably know quite a bit about the HTML and how to do HTML and how it's structured, because you have to know how to parse and get at it in order to get what you want out of that. JavaScript is a common, really, it's kind of a programming language, right? That you can use to manipulate HTML. So it would be something that you would need to learn if you needed to do some of this stuff. It's not something that Microsoft purposely didn't develop this object property on the new type of browser. It more had to do with the engine and the availability of inbred methods and properties that were already there. And that's why I think they took this approach. If you're going to do this, you'll need to know a little bit about it. There's also the execute JavaScript method where you can pass in some type of JavaScript as a string to actually modify the HTML. I'm not really going to cover that today in the example I'm going to show you, but know that the difference between these two is that retrieve JavaScript gets what's in the document and allows you to do stuff with it. And then this execute JavaScript would allow you to manipulate that if you were going to do that. So hopefully that is clear. So let's take a quick look at that. So here is a simple scraping using the old web browser control. And what I did here, and again, this is going to be the same website that I'm going to pull up on both of these. The first one, it's the website that I'm using is not fully supported in Internet Explorer anymore. And so I get these errors first, and some of the stuff doesn't display right. But what I really want to get from this is actually these values here. And it happens to be when you look at the table, or if you look at the HTML here, that this is in a table. And when I do scrape, and I'm going to put a stopping point here on my code. Okay, so when you do scrape here, and I could have used the document complete event and gone into some kind of an automatic scraping here, but I didn't. And I have here some code as well for you that will take and write out the complete inner HTML of the web browser object to a file, and then you can look at it, because HTML can get really long when you take a look at it. So to actually just display it alone in a text box is something that, is hard to read. So it's probably better if you need to just start into the HTML for a given website and you need to, find pieces of it to scrape, that you first output it to a text file and look at it that way so you can, see it better and do find and replace and all that kind of stuff. But for this particular one, I am going to get the elements by the tag name table, and I'm going to get the zero occurrence of it, and I'm going to get the inner HTML of that table. So if you've done this type of thing before, hopefully you're semi-familiar with some of this syntax. And then I'm going to stuff it into this me text HTML, which is simply a text control on my form here. So when I do that, then I get on my form this is what the table looks like. It's got T-body, it's got rows, this is the header, this is the engineering, computer science, math, business. So I could do more with that. And if I wanted to actually grab that data, I would want to do more than that. I would want to go down to the level where I was, grabbing this engineering value and stuffing it into one field, and then this and stuffing it into another field, and then maybe building a table and access off this. But these are the kind of reasons why you might scrape a website. And then let me show the new way to do the same thing. So I've got the same thing going on here. I've got the same website, and notice how quickly it comes up without any of those script errors. I've still got the same, got some pictures and some other things that didn't happen on the old one, but here I've still got the same table that I want to grab. And what happens when I scrape that? And again, I put what it would take to get the whole HTML out in a file here. So this is using the retrieve JavaScript, and I'm sending it document.documentElement.innerHTML to grab the whole HTML for the whole website. And I will just say that at the moment, I'm finding that you need to get the syntax exactly right and the capitalization right. Sometimes when it's wrong, I'm seeing just nothing being returned or nothing happening. And sometimes, right now anyway, it's hanging access up and I have to stop access. So like the first time I did this, I had a capital D here in document, because when I did this the old way, this had a, yeah, here, it has capital D, right? And so, you know, go figure. This bit that's commented out is the bit to get the whole one. And then the retrieve JavaScript way to get the element by tag name is document.getElements by tag name. And because it's in a double quote here, I have 2 double quotes instead of 1 to get table. And then notice how I have square brackets here instead of the regular parentheses like I do here. So it's a little bit different syntax. It's true JavaScript syntax that you need to use, but this ends up then doing the same thing here. So let's go ahead and run this. There we go. We've got a little bit different format. It's all run together as opposed to the way the other one looked where it was spaced out, but it's still the same string as we had before. So we could parse out and grab, you know, engineering, this value, that kind of thing. All right, so I think that's all I wanted to show today. Let me just go back to my, yeah, and here is the web resources I provided for you. There's a great discussion, a blog post that Michael and Aldridge, there we go. Thank you so much. About Internet Explorer 11 retirement and what it means for Microsoft Access. And so there's some good discussion about the different engines underneath here and the difference between the two in that. There's a link to the help on learn.microsoft.com on the Edge browser control, and then specifically about trusted domains. And then here's a link to the JavaScript tutorial. I also saw somebody, Thomas, you posted a link in the chat here on another article on the trusted domains. And again, we got another Mike. What?
Mike Wolf.
Wolf, yes. No Longer Set is the website where he publishes his write-ups on, and he's got one on trusted domains there. So take a look at that as well. I haven't looked at that yet, but I will after this. So thank you, Thomas, for posting that. Anybody have any questions or comments or information to add? I know, Colin, you've played with this. George, you've obviously played with this.
Maria, I could, if you want, if you can give me about 3 or 4 minutes, I could demonstrate a few things about long URLs and local files and so on.
Yeah,
Right.
yep, that's okay.
Browser test. Now, I haven't played with this for about a month or so. I was playing with it before it was publicly released, but I haven't had time recently, so I'm a bit rusty on this. But you can see here I've got a number of different files that I tested, some of which were testing long URLs. Now, as Maria said, you could get up to 2048 characters in the standard web browser or 2083 in the ActiveX version of it. I've got a URL. I've tried to put it on the screen here, but I can't. It's 2087 characters. If you actually set that as the control source, which I'm going to do now, I will get this error saying you can't actually have an expression longer than 2048 characters. Now, Joe, who's been working on this, is aware of this bug, and he's trying to fix it so that it can actually do that. But I think it's a VBA issue, not an access issue there. But you can get around that by going to this version here. Instead of setting a long URL as a control source, here I've got one which is over 5,600 characters. I can set it as a control source if I do it from a table, as you can see here, or I can use the navigate setting instead, and that does work, as you can see, and both of those methods work. What you can't do is set a long URL as a control source through the browser, if you like, the browser interface itself. So I've gone up beyond this number. You can get up to 16K characters in Google Maps. I believe it would go further if I had something I could play with. Here's a JavaScript version.
So I'm sorry. Could you say that one more time? So
yeah.
Are you talking about the new web browser control?
Right. Yeah. On the new Edge browser control, there is still a bug that prevents you typing in more than 2,048 characters directly into the control as you're setting it up. You get that VBA error that I showed you, error 2131. You can get around that in at least 2 ways. Method 1 is to put your URL into a table. And if you do that, you can then use that as the control source, which I've done in this particular window here. In this one, when I press the button, it actually sets it as the navigate method, and that does work with longer URLs. So it's a discrepancy which hopefully will be sorted out. The obvious problem with very long URLs done through code is line continuations, and you need to watch out for that. Okay on that one?
Yes, right. Thank you.
JavaScript, I've done a little bit of work on that, not as much as you have. Let's close that form and reopen it. I've got a local HTML file. For local files, in order to get them to load, you have to, did you say this earlier, Maria? Precede them with HTTPS:/MS access and then the file path. I don't know if you mentioned that. In this particular,
and what was that?
Right. Okay.
For local?
Yes. To load a local HTML file,
I'll add that.
You have to proceed with HTTPS://MS access / and then your normal file path. If you do that, it will load. If you don't do that, it doesn't work properly. What I've got underneath this message here is the longitude and latitude of where I live, which is there. I could zoom it, but I won't bother now. And I'm trying to retrieve that for doing geolocation for wherever you are, and it works when I've not done it on this particular test thing, but it works about 1 occasion in 10. The problem is not retrieving the data. It's a timing issue with JavaScript. I've found it really quite difficult to get the hang of it because I'm not used to JavaScript.
Colin, can you clarify for me, is that workaround for the local files because of the redirect issue and not being able to mix the two right now? Or is it just that the browser control right now isn't allowing local files at all?
No, it's allowing local files, but only with this prefix. I think it's the security issue that they described before.
Okay.
Whether or not, now, as Joe said, the security team have given permission for that to be loosened to some extent. What that means in practice, I don't know. I think it means if you have bound controls, then you will be able to use local or remote URLs there. But if you have unbound controls, they're still going to prevent you typing in local URLs without this sort of prefix anyway, in order to try and prevent anyone putting malicious files onto your system. I think that's the idea anyway. Two more things I was going to show you here. Here's one just showing you how you can quickly flit from one to another. And notice there's a slight delay if you try and load an online PDF. If I remember correctly, the last time I tested it, you couldn't load local PDFs within the browser control. They had to go to an external browser. And I think that may be true for other types of file like Word docs as well. I haven't tested them. Has anyone else tested them? No? Okay. And just another...
I can't imagine how they would be different than the HTML file like this.
Yeah, it's a known glitch.
Okay.
Again, it is being worked on, and I'm sure that issue with local PDFs and so on will be fixed later. But it's one of the reasons why I've found it quite difficult to retrieve information from various places here.
Yeah.
And here, this is a local copy of one of my web pages. In fact, it's the web page where I've got my local geolocation from Photos app, which stopped working because of JavaScript. There should be a bunch of images at the top there. There should also be an image there, an image here, and so on. And none of the internal links are retained at the moment. In other words, I can load the page by preceding that, but unless I also alter the code to precede each of those locations there, I can't load the image. Now, I have local copies when I'm actually doing development of web pages in order to test them. And at the moment, that is a total pain. And it doesn't matter whether I do it with the navigate setting or with the control source setting. I still find I've either got just a placeholder for the image, or in this case, where it's a sub page, if you like, I got nothing at all. So those are issues.
You just got to post it live to the website and go live off your website.
Yeah, I know. Well, you see, I have been happily doing this through IE for ages because I don't use WordPress, so I have no JavaScript on my own website. But I think these are teething problems. The quality of the rendering is so much better than the old IE browser. The speed of loading is generally faster, and not having all those endless script errors is just wonderful. Hopefully, it will be all sorted out by the time that the control is publicly released.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Colin. So we're going to open up for questions now. Does anybody have anything particular they want to ask about with this? And understand that we're all very inexperienced with it at this point, but hopefully we can at least get your questions out there.
I have a question.
Okay.
This is George. Is there a source for the documentation on coding this yet? Or is it all just hunt and scrounge, find the references?
So by coding, you mean like some of the things I showed with the navigate and with stuff like that?
The syntax.
Yep. Yeah.
And
so
I see Tomas is on the call, and he's done quite a bit.
Tomas, have you published any of the samples that you've done or the things that you've done with it?
Yes, I have done it. At the moment I work on transferring my tools to the new web browser control. There is still a lot of work to do, but I've published some pre-releases on GitHub. You have to go to the releases and look for the pre-releases so you can see what I did.
Do you have a link that you want to publish for us at all, or like here in the chat?
Yes, I will.
Okay, that would be awesome.
Thomas, did you find additional web pages published by Microsoft beyond the first few of the properties and so on?
No,
I haven't. Right, so you've worked it all out for yourself. Okay.
I haven't either. The Learn pages are good, but right now they're just very basic. They're the description of the properties and, very basic. And there's no examples that I could find at all. Whereas on the old web browser documentation, there's some definite examples of a little bit of the programming and the manipulation.
So the answer to my question is no?
Not right now that I'm aware of, George.
But Joe has said that there will be more documentation.
I know I'm being a little bit facetious, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
No, actually.
Well, this is new, right? So, yeah.
What, George being facetious?
Yeah. No.
I'm dead serious all the time. I will say that I have another website, which is done with C# coding.net, and it loads and runs fine. As long as I don't need interactions with it, it runs fine in the browser control. I haven't really explored it yet. I popped it in a week or so ago, and it ran fine. The next step is to see if I can break it. But I think what you were talking about, Colin, is where the boundaries are going to fall.
Yeah, I mean, so far, everything I've reported over the last 3 months has been fixed, including sites that seem to break originally for no reason at all. They all now run smoothly. I'm sure there are issues that are still to be to come, but everything, Joe has certainly been very proactive in fixing things.
Yeah, it's a night and day difference between the two browser controls. Yeah.
Colin, your local files seem to be loading much faster than my ones. Just an impression, or did you have a special fix?
Sorry, was that to me, Thomas? I didn't hear you.
Okay. When you loaded the local file, it seemed to me that your the speed was very fast. When I try to do to load a local file, I have to wait for 1 or 2 seconds.
It seems to depend on the size of the file, is the obvious thing. It's it's slower than placing exactly the same file online. Crazy, even when I've got such a slow internet, but that's the case. I suppose it's just doing additional checks, security checks, the mark of the web type thing. Drives me bonkers.
And I only load an empty HTML file. So where is the security problem there?
Yes, who knows? But I suppose Access or the browser control has to check whether there's any security problems. Same way as it did before when you had files in untrusted locations, and it was trusting the anti-malware scan every single time it ran the same code, which was stupid, but that's what it is.
Okay.
So I do see one other question in the chat. Neil has asked, what about using the new control in a report? And I did not try that in my samples, Neil. I apologize, but my understanding is that you can use it in a report, just like you could use the old web browser control to show.
I know it's one of the things that Mike Wolf and Daniel Pinolter both said that they'd been waiting for in the beta. I didn't know if they'd been looking at it pre-release, and I wondered whether it is in this release.
On the roadmap, there's actually 2 lines. One is it in the form control, which the rollout is March, and one is the modern browser or modern web browser control, which is April. So, perhaps reports just aren't in the wild.
First release.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I will, as a follow-up here to this, I'm already going to try someone's idea, I think Tomas's, of using the single quotes as opposed to the double, and see if that works. I know I did try it, but it didn't work, but I think that I might have had something else wrong. So now that I know I have everything else correct, I'll try that again.
And it definitely does work, Maria.
Does work, yeah. Okay,
because that's the first way I did it. So
yeah, and I'll add some stuff to my presentation about the local file and needing to put the extra text around that. Thank you for that, Colin. But I will try the report as well Neil, and see if I can get maybe an answer for sure on, what the two different timed version releases are and get that straightened out as well.
Okay, another question, possibly for Colin. I think you said that it doesn't currently load local PDF files. Do you know if the roadmap's got a plan for that? Because that's actually the only thing I've actually used the web browser for in a real application.
Of course.
All I can say is that I had a discussion with Joe.
Maria, the light just came on for me. We were talking about the Power BI.
Yeah.
And I just dawned on me, I published, there's a link you can publish for a Power BI app that is a public link.
And that's
rather
what
than
you
going
did.
through the website. And that's how I got that to work. Yeah.
Okay, let me try that.
Yeah. So
and if I do that, maybe y'all can actually see it.
Yeah. So when sorry, I forgot that until.
Nope. That's a good point. Because mine's got like a groups, me and stuff. Yours didn't have any of that. So probably if you actually publish the report publicly.
Yeah. When you publish the report from your desktop to the site, there's an option in the dialogue, I think.
Okay.
If I remember correctly. It's been about 2 years since I actually.
Yeah, I hadn't played with it in a little while too. So it was definitely a view. What George showed us was a view.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And again, I'm not a Power BI expert, so I couldn't tell you what the differences between the two are. But
yeah, you wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, let's just see if it works, and then we'll.
Yeah,
I'll go play with it some more too. Now that the light just came on here, I know you can't modify it, but if it has slicers and fillers, those should still work. But that's to be determined.
Okay, well, next month I am just planning on giving you a recap of whatever I can, whatever Microsoft tells me I'm allowed to tell you as an overcap of some of the news from the summit. And then in May, we are going to have Tom Van Stiphout and Kim Young as speakers, co-speakers, and they're going to show you the new Northwind 2. I think it's actually 2 databases, if I understand right, one for beginners and one for developers. So they're going to demo that. They are going to demo that as well at Access DevCon. I don't know if you've all heard about Access DevCon, but that's a Vienna-based conference. It is a paid conference, but it's good. It's a couple days long, and I think worth your money if you're so inclined and have the time for that. It's virtual. You don't have to go to Vienna. So look up that. Let me type in what the name is if you want to Google it yourself. I don't think registration's closed yet. And otherwise, we will see you next month. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers. Thanks, Maria.
Thank you, Maria.
I've learned a lot.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Oh, Maria, you're so brave presenting the web browser so soon.
So soon? I know.
I've just literally retried a local PDF, and you get a whole load of gibberish appearing on the screen rather than the file. So
it's probably like you
not
can't
yet
use the
fixed.
PDF viewer or something like that.
Yeah,
I guess.
That's
Anyway.
based on the assumption that your PDF didn't already have gibberish in it, Colin.
No, mine don't, but I just speak gibberish. If I could dictate PDFs, they would do.
Colin, thank you much for all your additional comments. They were super helpful.
Yes, thank you for
Thank you.
attending.
And if is Dwayne still present? I haven't got
No,
the list.
I don't think so.
He's gone. All right, I need to contact. Dwayne is doing Access Europe next Wednesday. Quick plug for those who are still here. And I'm going to get in touch with him in the next day or so.
We have a whole week in between this time, huh?
We do.
Yes.
So Crystal's got time to publish.
Yeah, but she
I'll
prefers to
wait.
do it later.
Yeah, I'll wait. But I think Dwayne's presentation will be totally awesome. He's a great presenter, and it's
What's he
such
doing?
a wonderful topic.
Yes. What's he doing? Calendar reports, I think it was.
All right, all. I got to get going.
Thanks. And yes, I agree. You are very brave, Maria.
Well, you noticed I had a few of those demo things. It's not working like it was when I tried it.
That happens for me when things have been available for 10 years. So
yeah, it does sometimes.
Yeah. So anyway, you've got an excuse in this time.
All right.
Yeah. Cheers. See you.
Thanks, Maria.